We are so excited to have the beautiful Christine Day. As Jay mentioned, she's a spiritual teacher, channel, and internationally renowned as the Pleiadian Ambassador. She spreads powerful and life-changing transmissions of light that she channels from the Pleiadians. She's the author of 3 books, Pleiadian Initiations of Light, Pleiadian Principles for Living, and the Pleiadian Promise brings the latest teachings from the Pleiadians to a worldwide audience. And we're going to be talking about later today. She also has a galactic immersion series. It's 90-minute Zoom classes, which I'm sure she's going to be talking about later in the show. And with that being said, welcome. It is so fantastic to see you.
Well, it's great being with everyone, with you too, and the audience. Just feels like a very important time on the planet for people to really gain clarity of what is going on, because there's so much happening energetically and there's a lot of confusion with that. And so what I like about the Pleiadians is that they bring the teachings very grounded down to a level that we as human beings can understand and really work with in our day-to-day living. And so it's a real self-empowerment process that the Pleiadians bring to us, to those of us who are willing to, just participate.
Take it on.
How did you, in 1994, you had an experience. How did the Pleiadians, first of all, did you even know who the Pleiadians were back then? And how did you actually connect with them?
I didn't even believe in aliens and spaceships, but I was walking in nature, turned a corner, and there was this huge ship, this spaceship. And the Pleiadians were coming out of the ship towards me, and I would have run if I could, but they actually grabbed me telepathically and reminded me of my own, it makes me emotional even going back to that point, but reminding me of my own Pleiadian heritage. And it was really my Pleiadian family that were coming from the ship to me to remind me of my pre-agreements here, the work I had to do, and my mission for this planet. Incredible. So as I was grabbed, it was like I remembered all of it. I remembered my planet, I remembered my Pleiadian aspect, and it was just a profound experience, very profound. And I found my Pleiadian energy coming into my physical body. And the part of the pre-agreement was to embody this part of my Pleiadian aspect, which is part of my higher self. And so I don't even remember getting home that day, but I was actually in bed for 2 months after that experience, while my full Pleiadian energy came into and embodied my cells. And so after those 2 months, it was like I was totally transformed. And during those 2 months, my Pleiadian family stayed with me, connecting with me, supporting me. But it was a huge transition. I really wasn't thrilled about the prospect of being Pleiadian or my mission. It was like
crazy.
I had a lot of problems accepting what my mission was to be and my Pleiadian energy, and really coming to terms with that.
Okay.
And I was really fighting that until one day 3 angels came down and came around my bed and just said, the Pleiadians are part of the God consciousness state. They're part of the God consciousness state of the universe. And this is really your role, your next step.
Aww.
It was really like a turning point for me. It was like I could grab that and accept that concept. And so I was out of bed a few weeks later, and then my whole life transformed. That's when I started traveling the world 9-10 months of the year, bringing the teachings. My whole Pleiadian self is actually established through me. So I carry those higher dimensional gifts that are naturally part of my multidimensionality. And I've been working with people all over the world for those 26 years until the pandemic. And then, I've gone online, totally online. I'm not traveling anymore. And that is a gift for me. not to travel anymore and to be more stable, except now I have this next step of a life-changing event.
That's it. And what you're talking about, the next step is before the show, we were talking about you moving. But before we get there, I have a quick question. Were you married then? Did you have children? Did they think you were losing your mind? How did your family handle this transition?
Well, interestingly enough, probably, what was it, about 10 years before, I had a spiritual awakening, but it wasn't with the Pleiadians. Well, it was, but I didn't know it was the Pleiadians. I was given, I had been given a couple of months to live. I had systemic lupus, advanced systemic lupus. And I was in the hospital and the doctors are saying, well, you know, you can't do anything more for you. And in that time, I was really like a depressed person. You know, I'd had a really abusive childhood and I hadn't dealt with any of my emotions, and I just was floundering in life as a human being.
Mhm.
And when the doctors told me that I was going to die, I kind of was actually excited because I was in so much pain from my past.
Mhm.
And that actually I realized in that bed that I had created something to kill myself. That was just an insight. And then in the next insight was, if I could create something to kill myself, I could create something to live as well. That I started to reconnect to my power, which I'd let go of as a child. And so I knew I had to live. I left the hospital that day. I left the doctors behind. And I wasn't into spirituality. I wasn't into healing. I wasn't into anything. And I went home and I just sat. I just really just sat. And there was this light that came to me, and I felt like it was the love of God. It was like this pure love that I hadn't experienced in this lifetime at all. And it was like this light was pouring through my hands, pouring through me. It was like this huge awakening of love, and it didn't leave me. And so that was my life changed then on one level, but I just thought it was the love of God.
Mhm.
And it destroyed my marriage because I was a depressed person and married to someone who wanted a depressed person, and I was no longer depressed. I actually started to feel joy. I started to get messages. I committed to living and committed to going with my guidance, nothing else, taking me from death to life more and more.
Do you think that there was something
It's
in there that's
amazing.
like people refer to it as a walk-in experience? Was there any similarity, or is this you as Christine as you know it then? Is this same Christine?
Well, it was a transformed Christine, because as the light came in, I was healed from my wounds, from my emotional wounds as a child. And I gathered my power back, my personal power. And this light was coming through my hands, and I started to put my hands on people, and the energy was working with a lot of people. And so, so I did get guidance about 4 years later that I had to leave my children and come to America. That I was to bring one suitcase. I didn't know anyone in America. I left my children with their father and I came here. And that was a huge change for me. It was a few years later that I had my encounter with the Pleiadians and realized that it was the Pleiadian energy that came to me, but I wouldn't have been able to deal with it at that point.
Yeah.
And so it was a profound experience. So I came to this country not knowing anyone. I've been here 35 years now, and now returning to Australia,
Aww.
which is a huge change. And going back, of course, to my, I've been very connected to my children. Of course, I didn't leave them per se. I left them physically. My youngest came and he's been living here with me for all those years, but the others were older and stayed in Australia, and I'm very connected with them, of course. So that's been the story. It's been
Absolutely incredible. When there's going to be people watching this and they're thinking, I had all those similar experiences when I was young. I was depressed. Why am I not getting a Pleiadian experience like you? So Why do you think it happened so profoundly?
Along comes my daughter, Kelly Garvey. She says, excuse me.
It's all right.
She says to me, Mom, I'm feeling great. I got a direction in life. You got to do this. Follow me. So here comes Asia.